This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and we love making this show available to you free of charge. If you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar. For more information, visit our website. Today I've baked a delicious apple brown Betty. Remember when I picked all those apples from my garden? Well, I had asked my VFFs what they might like to see me create with them, and Carol suggested an apple brown Betty. A brown Betty is a really old-fashioned American dessert, but one that is really worth making. In fact, if you want to follow the recipe while I'm putting it together, just take your smartphone and scan the QR code here on the screen, and the recipe will come right up. Now, an apple brown Betty looks much like an apple crisp, but it doesn't have a sweet streusel topping on it. It has one made from fresh breadcrumbs. We're going to be making our apple brown Betty in a little 8 or 9 inch square pan. This is a glass one, but a metal one would work fine too. I'm going to give it a little spritz with my baking spray. Then I'm going to set this aside. One of the things that's great about apple brown Betty is it's a dessert you can throw together when you don't have much available on hand. All you need is some apples and a way to make some fresh breadcrumbs. Now, in this recipe, you'll want to use some day-old or stale bread. It can be any kind that you like. I wouldn't go with one that has a strong flavor like rye or pumpernickel. I'm using a wheat white bread. And when you make the fresh crumbs, it's going to give an excellent flavor to this apple brown Betty. Don't be tempted to use a can of dry breadcrumbs. They won't give you the same kind of flaky, delicious flavor that we're looking for. Now, to make the crumbs, I'm just ripping the bread up, putting it in my little Cuisinart mini prep, and I'm just going to grind it up. And you can see I use the crusts and all. And I want to be making this really flaky, delicious breadcrumb. And I'll put my 3 cups of fresh breadcrumbs in a small bowl like this. Now, if you find that you have extra crumbs, now I ground up about 5 or 6 slices of bread, and I do have a little bit left over. I'm going to put these in a little freezer bag and label them and put them in my freezer. That way, whenever I have some stale bread, I can just grind it up and put it in the freezer, and when I have about 3 cupfuls, then I can make another apple brown Betty. Now, to moisten our crumbs, I've melted 1/3 cup of butter. I'm going to pour that in, and with my spoon, I'm going to combine those. Now, it's important that we get a little bit of butter on all of those crumbs. So just take a few moments and keep mixing and mixing. Now, this butter is not only going to give great flavor to the crumbs, but it will help the crumbs brown in the oven as well. So you can see as I mix, the crumbs start to look moist, almost like wet sand. That's what I'm going for here. Now, I'm going to take about 1/3 of these crumbs out and sprinkle them onto the bottom of my dish. Just give it a light coating, and then we'll save the rest of these for later. Next, I'm going to get my apples ready. Now, remember all those apples I picked off my apple tree in the garden? Well, I've taken some of those and I've peeled them, and then I'm going to cut them in half and core them. And I'm going to cut them into slices like this, kind of a medium slice. Once I have 8 cups of sliced apples, I'll put them into a bowl. And to the apples, I'm going to take the zest off of 1 lemon, put that in the bowl, and then I'll cut the lemon in half and take the juice, but just out of the 1/2. And I'll toss that together. So I want to make sure that I can get that zest dispersed along with the juice. Then I'll add a teaspoon of cinnamon and some fresh nutmeg. And I like to grind my own. And I'll add about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And then I'll toss that together. And once the spices are mixed in, I'll add 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. Now I've got my pan with 1/3 of the crumbs in. I'm going to put half of the apples in. I want to make sure that they're a nice even layer. Then 1/3 of the crumbs, the rest of the apples, and I like to push them out to the sides of the pan with my hands. Now before I put the last coat of crumbs on the top, I have 1/2 cup of fresh apple juice. If you don't have apple juice, you could use water. I'm going to pour that on top. And then with my hands, I'll just sprinkle the rest of the crumbs on top. I'm going to cover the whole top with a piece of foil. Now, what I'm going to do is put this in a preheated 350-degree oven. I'm going to let this bake with the foil on for 20 minutes. Then after the 20 minutes, I'll take the foil off and put it back in the oven for another 20 to 25 minutes until the top is brown and the apples are cooked through. Now you will want to let your brown Betty cool a little bit before you serve it, but it's delicious warm with either some whipped cream or some ice cream. There's a nice juice in this Betty that's wonderful. It's almost like a little sauce. It's the combination of the apple juice that we put in and then the juices from the apple as they cooked. It's got a great apple flavor. It's not overly sweet like a crisp or a crumble because we just have those breadcrumbs on top, which are not sweet. It's really, really good. Well, if you'd like to try this apple brown Betty at home, just go to our website, go to the Farmer's Market Gourmet show notes. I'll have the recipe there for you. Don't forget to join us on Facebook. And as always, if you have any questions or ideas for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.